Welcome back, year 10s, 9s. Welcome back, year 9s, to your next lesson on the Anglo-Saxon and Norman people for 1066. So today, let me just bring this up here. Your starter task for today's lesson is to think about what all these words and phrases might mean. So go away. If you don't know what some of these things might mean, okay, you might need to look them up. They're not keywords for today. This is just your starter task. So yeah, make sure you understand what each word. So if you don't know what this word sophisticated means, then go away and look it up. But just essentially see if you can actually make any connections between these words, okay? Are there any things? So, for instance, it could be argued that perhaps well organised could be linked with law-abiding. So, can you actually draw any connections between the two? You could argue that maybe primitive could be linked with low technology. Okay, draw links between those. So, spend 5 or 10 minutes checking that you understand what these words are and drawing out any links. Pause the video and come back when you're ready. So today we're going to be looking at Anglo-Saxon life. Life in Anglo-Saxon England before 1066. In particular, village life and town life. We're going to be looking at essentially what they are like, okay, and if there are any similarities, any differences, or what have you. Okay, so that is today's session. So start off then. There's a nice video clip here. It's about 25 minutes long. So spend some time watching through it. It's a bit like a sort of pre-recorded lesson that somebody's done. But it is excellent. It's got some excellent information in it. So pause the video, go away, watch this, and then come back when you're ready. So, village life in Anglo-Saxon times. Essentially, most villages, if any of you are studying geography or remember from geography, most villages grow up along either a river or a road. Okay, so rivers very important for water, for washing, for drinking. So you'll find a lot of very, very early villages start by roads. Okay, or if there is a pre-existing road already in place, then again you might find that a village might grow up along, particularly where maybe a road intersects a river, so on a bridge. Yeah, so you know you've got water, you've got transport. So again, that's where a village might start. It would normally cluster around a church. So a church would be built, and then there would be fields, obviously for growing the food. Okay, and they'd start off as scattered farms. Okay, all around the countryside. Okay, and then slowly but surely, the population density would increase, and as would the density of the buildings. Houses were made of wood and thatched with straw. So thatching, I'd say thatching, that is a key word. Here, thatched. So if you don't know what that word means, pause the video, look it up and come back. And okay, so then come back. We've got this word thanes. Again, definitely a key word. So if you don't know what that word thane means, needs to be looked up and then come back. So thanes lived in manor houses, which were larger, better built than the peasants' huts. Generally, at that time, most buildings were built with wattle and daub, so they were essentially bendy sticks that were kind of weaved together, and then mud and all sorts of stuff was slung to the outside. Some of these manor houses may have been fortified. Again, key word. Yeah, if you don't know what that word fortified means, okay, you need to look it up. Now, as was mentioned in previous videos, okay, the Anglo-Saxon people of England were incredibly religious. Christianity was the predominant religion in England at that time. And so Christianity was a very, very popular, very important part of religious of everyday life. So in fact, actually the next lesson, this is kind of a taster, the next session you're going to be looking at is about church life, Christianity in Anglo-Saxon times. So a couple of questions for you to answer there. Pause the video here, answer these questions, come back when you're ready. So local government then. So the Shire, as in Buckinghamshire, okay, the 100 and the Hyde. So earldoms were divided into shires. So you've got, you know, perhaps Wessex was divided into various shires, okay. Each shire had a social, political, and economic and military function. Shires themselves were divided into 100, okay, and hundreds were divided into tithings. So a tithing is a unit of 10 household. Now these terms here are very, very important that you understand what they are, okay? Yeah, it's classic exam style question. Right, classic, absolute classic. You know what a shire is, you know how a shire is divided up, you know what 100 is, and you know how 100 tidying up, and you know what a tithing is, okay? Tithing is 10 households. So what that means is, that is 10 families, yeah? 10 houses, and each house has a family, a husband, a wife, and children, okay? Right, at the basis of this whole administrative system was a Hyde. A Hyde was essentially the land needed to support a household. Okay, yeah, the amount of land needed for one household, one family to essentially to live off. Okay, and each Hyde carried obligations. Taxes and military service. So we've got some key terms here, ladies and gents, and some questions over. All right. So make sure you've got these key terms here. Oh, hello. What happened there? Excuse me. Sorry. Right. So make sure you've got these key terms written in your books. Okay, and then what I want you to do is I want you to create a chart, okay, showing the hierarchical structure. So essentially from the chart needs to be shire, okay, 100. Then it needs to be tithing. Okay, household. And then Hyde. So that's going to be your chart. That's essentially going to be, but I need it detailed. All right. Okay, it needs to be far more detailed than that. All right. So here's an exam style question. We're going to be coming back to that. This is just to show you essentially, yeah, this is the kind of stuff you're going to be asked in your exam, so you do need to know it. Right, pause the video here, come back when you're ready. So now we've got a burh. This is an Anglo-Saxon fortified town. So we've got some key, absolutely key parts to our burh. So first of all, okay, it's fortified, i.e. there's a wall around it, all right, with gatehouses, yeah, providing control in and out of the place with roads. Okay, we've got a church. Remember, Anglo-Saxon England is very, very Christian, very religious. Okay, an important meeting place here. Perhaps a town hall. This might have been the town hall, or might have been that one, maybe. Okay, or there, what have you. Okay, there would almost certainly one of these would be a pub as well. Now look at this road network as well. And this very square nature to the burh. So we can quite clearly see here during Anglo-Saxon times, there was a very similar structure and build to a burh, and we can draw comparisons with Roman marching towns. So when back in the day, when the Roman legionary soldiers, when they stopped for the night, they set up and built a marching camp, a marching fort, okay, which looked very similar to this. And then over time, these forts became fortified towns, okay, normally cestas, okay. Cirencester, Chichester, Bicester, places like that, okay. So they started off as military forts, okay, and they grew into towns with very, very similar kind of square fortified structures and a road network and a road layout and everything, normally kind of laid out. Now, obviously, this isn't laid out quite as nicely and neatly as Roman towns, because these are the dark ages, aren't they? So, you know, technology has kind of regressed slightly and things have gone back in time a little bit. But we can still quite clearly draw some nice structural comparisons between the Anglo-Saxon fortified burh town and the old Roman cesters, okay, which were the fortified Roman towns. So by the end of Edward's reign in 1066, just bring up my little highlighter here. Okay, something like 10% of the population were living in towns. Each shire, every shire had a main town, and these were normally old chesters. They were normally old Roman towns that existed before Anglo-Saxon times and had been established by the Roman legionaries. So these fortified burhs, okay, often were planned, all right, so that there was no more than 15 or 20 miles from safety if there was a Viking invasion. They had strong walls and ramparts. So rampart, important keyword there. I'll bring my pen up there. Okay, rampart, important keyword. Make sure you know what a rampart is. And they were guarded by men, and everybody the whole town took its turn in guarding and took a communal responsibility in looking after the town. So the burhs were also key trading hubs. The king's laws demanded all trade worth more than a set amount should take place in a burh, okay? So that essentially trade could be taxed and protected. That's quite important, yeah? Didn't want trading happening out in the countryside where A, there wasn't tax happening, and B, it could be protected. By 1060, London and York were the biggest cities in England, okay? Towns often grew in importance because of international trading links. So, for instance, York, that traditionally old Viking town, was the centre of trade with the Viking people. Bristol, okay, was the centre of trade between the west of England and Viking settlements. Okay, London was probably the biggest, okay, with all documents existing from the time linking London to traders with Germany, France, and Normandy, and Flanders. So the burh then, what I like to do is I'd like you, all right, to either from the book or from the internet, okay, yeah, or from one of the images on this particular slide, get a nice big copy of a burh. You can even have a go at drawing this out yourself if you like. Okay, all right. And I'd like you, once you've done that, once you've got it printed off, using the information on these last couple of slides, I'd like you to label the parts, all right? The various different parts that you might find on there, in particular things like the road layout in that kind of grid style, your church, the walls, etc. Okay, the fact it grows up near a water place, we've got it following a river's natural defense for a river, and you've got your water available for you as well, everything like that. Okay, so either draw it or print it, but I need a labeled copy of a burr in your notes. Pause here, come back when you're ready. Right, exam style question. We've got some sentence starters here. We've got a top tip there. Okay, it's worth 4 marks. So remember, ladies and gents, remember, okay, 1 mark equals 1 minute. So it shouldn't take you more than about 4 or 5 minutes to complete this. So I'm not asking for a great deal. You're looking at 2 marks per response. You need 2 responses, 4 marks in total. Pause the video here and have a go at this. Come back when you're ready. Okay, once you've had a go at this, have a go at assessing. Highlighter. So, have you got 2 features? Okay, 1 mark for each of the 2 features. Have you provided relevant information? Give yourself an additional mark for each explanation of the features. Okay, have you used key terms? Have you used paragraphs? Okay, and did you time yourself? Did it take you 4 or 5 minutes? Okay, give yourself a mark. If you'd like to submit your practice question to me, send it to me in email. I'm happy to have a look. Okay, so pause the video here. This is kind of like the first part of the lesson. And then, so you can either go all the way through and do both parts of the lesson in one, both lessons, or you can pause here and come back later on in the week. So, okay, so we've got the Shire Reeves. So thinking back then to our American West unit that we didn't long ago complete, this term sheriff should be familiar to you, okay? The term sheriff, or to give it its proper term, Shire Reeve, was the king's man, okay? And the sheriff was responsible for a variety of different things. Okay, collecting tax and revenues, the geld tax, fines, okay, enforcing law at the Shire Court, and he was also making sure that men were provided for the Feud. More about that later, okay? The upkeeps of roads and fortifications. The king himself issued his orders through the Shire Reeves, okay? So when it came to giving out orders to the land, it was the Shire Reeves that were given to it, and okay, and these were written instructions with stamped with a seal, okay? Right, so make sure you've got your key term written down, pause the video, answer these questions, come back when you're ready. So what was the Feud? Okay, in my best Anglo-Saxon accent, the Feud. Yeah, fun thing to know. When I did my GCSE exam, GCSE French exam, my oral, my French teacher said I had a grinding Anglo-Saxon accent. He even wrote that in my report. So there we go, then my best Anglo-Saxon accent, the Feud, when the call came from the king, okay? Each group of 5 hides. So quick reminder, what's a hide? Go back and check if you don't know what a hide is. Each group of 5 hides was obliged to provide 1 man for the Feud, okay, together with his battle equipment. So he needs basically, if he wants some armor, so he doesn't get badly hurt, he needs to actually provide his own armor or a helmet. If he wants a spear and a shield, he needs to turn up with that as well. So there were two different types of feud, the select and the general feud. Okay, so the select feud gathered men to fight anywhere in England for the king. All right. Or even maybe even abroad, but that didn't really happen as much. Yeah, English kings had more than enough on their plates managing and looking after issues in England at the time. They didn't really look abroad very much. Mostly it was about defending against marauding Vikings. So there's a massive Viking invasion, okay, or worse still, the Normans turn up on your south coast. It would be essentially all men would be gathered and they could fight anywhere. Now, the general feud gathered men to fight and they didn't travel outside their local area. This might have been just to fight locally within their own shire. So the select feud was made up of thanes and their followers, okay, rather than general population. So the thane, they are professional soldiers. Pretty much all they did was fight, okay? They trained together, they were well equipped, they were armored with centrally provided uniform weapons and maybe even horses, okay? However, remember, Anglo-Saxon society is an agricultural society. Yeah, the wealth of the kingdom, the wealth and the health of the kingdom was dependent upon people growing the crops and essentially paying taxes from those crops. The last thing anyone needed to be was away from their farm for too long. Yeah, if you were away from your farms, if you were a thane and you were away from the farm for too long, your peasants, your revolting peasants probably wouldn't bother doing their work. Okay, crops wouldn't get grown, crops wouldn't be harvested, and they wouldn't be stored. Okay, so therefore there was a 40-day fixed service in the field. After that, the field would be disbanded. Pause the video, answer these questions, come back when you're ready. So, just mentioned Anglo-Saxon economy. Since time immemorial, yeah, the Romans, the Anglo-Saxons, people came to this country because of our two unique things, basically, all right? So essentially, it was one, the climate, and two, it was minerals. So the climate meant our very temperate climate means that we get lots of sun. You wouldn't believe it, but we also get plenty of rain. Plenty of sun and plenty of rain mean lots of green stuff grows. Means crops grow very well and animals live very well. All right. So we've got arable and agriculture. We've got essentially crops and we've got animals. So particular sheepies and piggies and cows, okay, and crops. So arable farming, okay. So, the economy of the country was based upon its agriculture, okay. So wool, yeah, remember wool and cloth at that time were vitally important in Western Europe. And we grew great meat, great animals, great crops, and lots of wool and lots of sheep and stuff. Yeah, sheep's good eating, pork's good eating, okay. Yeah, beef's good eating and all that kind of stuff, as well as grain as well. So our grain grew very well. So people wanted a piece of that, yeah. And no wonder William came. He wanted the money that was made from all of this stuff. More importantly is the mineral wealth. Here in England, we have tin. We have copper, okay? So tin, can I rub this out? Will that work? No? I might have to get a rubber here. Okay. So we've got tin, copper, silver. Okay, these are all key minerals that are hard to find in other parts of Europe. Tin in particular was very valuable and very hard to find in Europe. And it was said that British silver was the European standard. Yeah. At that time, British or English silver was the best you could get in Europe, and our coins were the most valuable, okay, and by which all others were judged. Okay, all others in Europe. But also things like millstones, so our our stones were very, very useful for milling bread and sharpening blades. Okay. So, and there's lots of evidence of trade from all parts of other Europe. In particular, we had things like wine from Normandy. Okay, good old Norman wine, can't beat a bit of European French wine. Okay, so also got a question there. Answer that question. Okay, thinking about all of this stuff. Why might William want to invade? Explain fully. Don't just say because of money or something. Okay, give me some reasons. So the king and the law. Okay, thinking about the legal system. This is going to link in with the unit you're going to do on crime and punishment after this one. Yeah, and in fact, we come back to this lesson, and we come back to the lesson you do with Mr. Laybourne on Cedric in our crime and punishment unit next. So if you remember, Edward, one thing that he was greatly respected for was his law-making abilities. He was well-written, he was well-read, okay, he knew the law of the land, he was respected as a king, okay, and, you know, he wasn't just a thug with a sword, which was the traditional approach of running the country, but he was actually highly educated, all right? People respected his laws because they were fair and they kept the peace, all right? And so offences against the king's peace were punished harshly. The people of England looked to the king to provide peace. They also expected him to provide justice and treat everyone of the same social standing in the same way. So it didn't matter whether you were an earl, a thane, a peasant, or a slave. If you conducted a crime, you were expected to be punished equally. So we've got two key ideas here, okay? The blood feud and the Wereguild. So pretty much before or up to Edward's times, we had this concept of the blood feud, and it was plain and simple, all right? If somebody hurt a member of your family or killed a member of your family, you could go to that person or that person's family and kill a member of their family or hurt a member of their family. Plain and simple. And the idea behind this is that hopefully people weren't likely to actually hurt you or your family because they'd be worried about the blood feud. But of course, accidents do happen, tempers do flare, and not surprisingly, people were injured and murdered. The problem with this is that this could go on for generations and affect whole communities. Yeah. Not surprisingly, if you imagine in a small town of 10 houses, yeah, most people are going to be related within that little village of 10 houses, aren't they? Yeah. Okay, no, you don't want to keep it in the family too much. So there's going to be quite a lot of intermarriage. Problem with that is that before you know it, all the families are related. So essentially a whole village could descend into warfare for generations, literally father and son and grandfather and son going back 50, 100, too many years, to the point where people end up forgetting why they hate them down the road. Yeah. And it would go on for too long. So the solution Anglo-Saxon kings came up with was the Wereguild. And essentially what this meant is that instead of you taking your revenge on the family that wronged your family, they had to pay compensation instead. Yeah. So for example, if you lost an arm, they had to pay so much money. The person who was responsible for damaging your arm, he or his family might have to pay compensation to a certain amount. Okay. In terms of murder, your worth was dependent upon your social status. 1 shilling is approximately about £100 today. So a girl, peasant, is worth 20, what's that? Yeah, 2 grand, £2,000, by today's system. It shows a certain amount of equal status, but also it shows the importance of status as well, and was a great example of fixing a broken system. Okay, there we go. Blood Feud. Okay, Rosewood Sutcliffe. Fun fact: are you interested? Go away, look this lady up. Maybe read some of her books. Okay, she writes a lot of stuff on Anglo-Saxon England. Okay, if you're interested. Okay, pause the video here as well and answer these questions, and make sure you've got your keyword down as well. Come back when you're ready. So I mentioned this word collective responsibility earlier, and you're going to come across this quite a lot in your next unit. When we come to do crime and punishment next, this concept of collective responsibility is the way we run issues with crime and punishment in England for hundreds, if not almost thousands of years. From Anglo-Saxon times right up until essentially the formation of the early police force. And this is basically what the collective responsibility was. If a crime was committed in your hide, in your little village, in your tithing, so tithing is roughly, remember, about 10 houses, 10 families. That's not going to be very difficult to sort out. 10 families, that's going to be maybe about 30 people. So it's going to be 10 men, maybe 10 women, perhaps less minus 1 or 2. If you lose your wife or you're not married, maybe 3 or 4 kids per family, maybe. So you're looking at approximately 30, maybe 40 people in your tithing, in your village. You're going to know everybody, every single person. We're only talking about 2 classes worth. And in school, a class is about 20 or 30 kids. So you're not even looking at a whole year group. You're going to know everybody in that village. And let's face it, if somebody steals your scarf, you're going to see them wearing it the next day. And you're going to know them, and you're going to know their mum, you're going to know their dad, you're going to know where they live. This problem will be solved very, very, very quickly. So if a crime gets committed, it's really going to be very, very obvious to solve. The problem with collective responsibility, as we find out later on in our next unit, is what happens in a big town or even a city. Once big towns and urbanization and cities start to happen, this collective responsibility starts to break down and fail. So ultimately, everybody is responsible in your tithing, okay? And it's plain and simple, you pay a fine. If somebody nicks your pie, they have to pay for the pie, all right? And ultimately, if they refuse, then, you know, they're going to have to deal with the village. They could get exiled. They could get kicked out of the village, right? And in Anglo-Saxon times, there weren't many places to live, yeah? You certainly wouldn't be allowed to go and move or live to another village, because what's going to happen when you get there? You're going to get to the next village. They're going to be like, who are you? Where have you come from? Yeah. What's your name? We don't know you. You're not a part of our collective responsibility. You're not a part of our little village. Yeah. Did you do something wrong in your last village? Did they kick you out? Off you go. We don't want you. Okay. Right, so got some questions here for you. Pause the video, answer these questions, come back when you're ready. In summary then, although most Anglo-Saxons were free, okay, although they did have slaves, slavery was very common in Anglo-Saxon time, okay, everyone had obligations and duties to somebody higher up them. The king was very powerful. Local government and local justice was administered by local people and officials. England had a strong economy and effective tax system. Okay, now it's this here, this summary here, which is obvious, a reason why anybody would want to invade England or even come live here. Why the Romans came, and for that matter, why William came. Right, so just to round off this lesson today then, got some strengthen, challenge and activity questions here, okay? Pause this video, complete the work set, and thank you very much. I'll see you next session.